Hi, I'm Melissa Nielsen, and welcome to our weekly video. If you're new to us, you're going to want to hit the subscribe and bell notification right below this video so that you can get updated on our videos every week when they come out. Today, we are talking about developing the will in children and in adults. So this sounds like it might be just an educational piece, and when we put this video up, we'll probably put it in the playlist for educational and for our parenting groups and audience, but really it goes both. It kind of spans both sides. So with regards to education, developing the will is really good because it helps children focus. It helps adults focus too. So since we're talking about children and adults today, I kind of want to sort of span both arenas there. I want to read a quote from a man whose work I followed for a long time. He's since passed away. His name is David Mitchell, and he was the head of OSNA, or the Association of Waldorf Schools of North America, for a while. And he's a Waldorf teacher. And he wrote this book, co-wrote this book, and it's called Will Developed Intelligence. And it's all about handwork. Now, we're not going to talk a lot about handwork today. We're going to talk about some about handwork, but I liked this quote because it really sort of dials in this idea of will and our sort of ability to think and what we have going on in our heads and how we can focus. So here goes. He says, biologists have discovered that when we are born, our brain has billions of active neuropathways. These passageways have a correlation with our ability to think when we reach adolescence. If they are correctly exercised during the early and middle childhood years. They are not used, they simply atrophy. We keep them active through the use of our hands. So that was David Mitchell. The book is Will Developed Intelligence. You might be able to get this as a free ebook on waldorflibrary.org. I'm not 100% sure though, so don't quote me on that. Great book if you're looking for handwork indications for all the grades. It definitely goes very much in depth and has some great ideas in here. So this is a great book for that. But again, like I said, this is not just a video about handwork. Definitely not. The will is this sort of piece of, and I guess mainstream we would call it to sort of have willpower. And it's sort of the same thing, but it's really this idea that we can focus. And I do think we live in a time right now where everybody seems to be showing up with ADHD stuff, and everybody seems to be showing up with lack of ability to focus. Everybody seems to be showing up with some executive function issues. And if that's you, this is not about, oh no, you shouldn't have that. This is about how do you strengthen things, because I'm all about the diagnosis is great because it gives you information, right? But that information then has to translate into how do I change my daily habits so that I can live a great life and so that I can live my best self and I can teach my children to do the same, rather than I'm only going to focus on the fact that I have this diagnosis. Now, we're no strangers to diagnoses in our home. We have some letters after some children, for sure. But I've always really worked on, okay, so the letters aren't going to tell us anything except who you are uniquely. And that doesn't even do that. It's just sort of a shell of who you are uniquely. What we need to do is take your unique talents and develop them and strengthen them and teach you how to take the things that you're weakest in and make those stronger so that you can function and have a wonderful life. So you're always living your best life, right? So those are things that we have really done with our children that have been having specific challenges. And I think it's important to do with all children, honestly, is to really be able to look at them and go, okay, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Let's see if we can build up those weaknesses and also really serve those strengths. So how do you do that? Well, handwork is one way. That's one reason why in the Waldorf curriculum, handwork is such an important piece. I have a lot of moms that say to me when they message me about homeschooling, hey, I just really want to skip this. Or we're coming to Waldorf later, like my child is in 3rd grade or in 4th grade. Do we have to start with knitting? Yes. So knitting is super important because it crosses both sides of the brain. The action of, I'm going to get rid of this book. The action of crossing your needles helps the brain work. So I always do handwork before lessons every day. So that sounds really silly, like, oh, well, handwork's just an extra. It's actually not. That quote from David Mitchell is so important, because when you start to work with your hands, it really gets the brain going. So there are a few things that sort of bring clarity to the brain. Action is like the number one word when it comes to bringing clarity. So action brings clarity. What kind of action? That has to be right action, right? So we start with a walk first, and that walking action sort of helps to start clearing the mind, especially for adults, I find. And if you're in a really bad mood or your child's about to have a tantrum, I always say, get out and go for a walk. Like when our daughter that really struggles sometimes, she's almost 9 as of the filming of this, and she still has some tantrums. She's got some sensory stuff going on, and sometimes the world is just too big for her. So I make her run. And people go, how do you do that? I go, well, we just go outside together. And I go, okay, there's a stop sign. You got to run to the stop sign, because here's what I know. You can't have a tantrum while you're running. And it always that movement then clears the mind. It sort of unravels the mind. So when you've got big stuff going on in your mind, you should go for a walk, because it'll help unravel that big stuff. And I know you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. It's really not. I promise you, the next time you're feeling like you're going to word vomit on somebody, or you're just going to lose it, go for a walk. And you can just tell your kids, listen, we're going for a walk, especially if you can't go by yourself, right? So you go for a walk. And I've said this before, we're going for a walk. I love y'all, but you can't talk to me for the first 5 minutes, because I got to get my brain just resorted. And it's okay. It really is okay. Your children are not going to be damaged or harmed by you saying, I need 5 minutes. Because guess what? When you take that 5 minutes, then you can kind of reintegrate and reconnect. And that's better than if you had lost it on them, and because you didn't have a boundary. So having boundaries is really important. If you need to know about boundaries more, watch the video we did last week. But as far as the will goes, as far as like sort of building this thing up, handwork is one way, and it's a really important way within the curriculum. Also, anytime you take on something new that you are willing to learn, that builds your will. So for instance, like for me, we were going through some struggles as a family a couple of years ago, and we had some major trauma happen. And my regular will development activity of knitting was just not taking me to the place I needed to relaxation wise. Because as we build that will, we gain confidence and we are able to relax and have some more calm. So I took up painting, watercolor painting, not just watercolor painting the way we would do in the curriculum, but real watercolor painting. And I really enjoy it. And what I found as I have taken that time to learn that skill and to be really patient about it, it is blossoming that skill, and I'm having a lot of fun. And if you want to see what I paint, follow us on Instagram. My Insta stories usually have what I paint. But it also developed this deeper sense of will for me, and it allowed me to see, hey, wait a minute, I can do this. If I can do this thing that seems so intimidating to me, I know I can do this thing over here. So I want you to sort of think of the will as this muscle that you have to exercise. And if you don't exercise it, it will not grow. So you have to be in a place where you are willing to go to that next step and to go to that place of, oh, I want to learn something new. So, if it's something that, like I said, that they want to learn, they'll go and do it on their own. But if it's something that you sort of need to instill in them, then again, some great ways, if you're homeschooling, especially if you're homeschooling with Waldorf, great ways are the things that are already built into the curriculum. So handwork, painting, modeling, drawing, all of those things are great. If you're not homeschooling and your kids go to school, and maybe you're just listening to us because we're also parenting coaches, then some great ways would be to introduce something that is a little bit harder outside of their comfort level. To picking up a new sport, or our kids do karate, and that's such a will developing activity, because it isn't just, oh, you learn karate once and that's all. It's kind of like, I think about soccer and baseball. You learn it once, right? And then of course you get better. But I think about karate as this thing that you're constantly learning something new. So especially as you're learning to belt up, right? So as you're learning those As you're learning those forms and those stances, it starts really easy, and then it constantly builds as they go through the belting system. So that's one really good way to really work on something that constantly challenges them. And if you have a reluctant child, listen, I get it. So our son that's 13, he's been in karate since he was 6 years old. He doesn't love it. He loves his sensei, but I make him go because he needs it. He needs that will development, and he's systematically is increasing in what he's doing. Another good way to build will would be like a scouting program, something where they have something that they want to earn and that they're getting really excited about. Another thing would be, if you do have kids that are in school, is there something that they're already doing in school that you can develop more at home? Maybe if they are in an art class at school, what can you do to develop that at home? What can you do together as a family? Will building together as a family would be, going on a tougher hike than normal, or something as a family that sort of stretches everybody a little bit. And as we sort of do that, we find our capacity to do something more so much richer. So once you have accomplished one thing, you go, whoo-hoo, I can do anything. And even if you don't think you can do anything, you can do the next hard thing because you accomplished this one thing that seemed so like giant and so hard. So sort of back to our homeschooling friends, for those of you who have just started down this road of Waldorf homeschooling and you're thinking, there's so much to learn, there is, but here you go. This is a huge opportunity for you to develop your will. So you want to really just be in a space where you are focusing on that learning piece, and you can just pick one portion to learn at a time, so that way you develop one capacity and that capacity leads you to another capacity. When it comes to sort of just everyday will building, really work on, especially if you're somebody that's a more sanguine temperament where you're jumping from thing to thing to thing, really work on completing one thing before you move on to the next. Listen, I think it's so funny when moms say to me, I've got 6 books on my nightstand. I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, you have to purge 4 of them. Close 4 of them, finish the 2, and then you can go back. And I had to enforce this with because I have a very sanguine daughter, my youngest, and she is very, I was laughing the other day where they were on their way to karate, which I kid you not is like 6 minutes from our house. And she has 2 giant books with her for the car ride. Like, 2 books, really? She's like, well, yeah, because we read a few pages out of here and then I move over here. I said, oh my goodness, pick one. And we're getting ready to go on a short overnight trip. And she's like, how many books can I bring? I'm like, 1. You bring 1 book. So you want to instill those habits when you're young. And if you're listening to me, you're like, oh my gosh, just cut me to my core. I can't read less than 5 books at a time. Try it. What happens when you try it is that you find the one book that you are in and you read it to its fullest and you hear everything the author wants you to know, whether it be a novel or, a nonfiction piece. You hear everything the author wants you to know, and then you're filled with it, and then you move on. But don't read like here, here, and here. Now, of course, I'm going to say there are some books that you aren't supposed to read beginning to end. They're more like reference books, right? So you might read a chapter here and a chapter there. Those are not the books I'm talking about. The books I'm talking about are the ones that you have stacked up on your bedside that are maybe all parenting books or all homeschooling books, and you're picking and choosing from each one. Pick one voice, read the entire thing, and then move on to the next one. And even if you can't do that and narrow down to 1 book, try 2. But 6 books at once, 10 books at once, is too much. It's too much. So I'm going to invite you to really think this week about how you can develop your will capacity. And in doing that, pick 1 to finish and then move on to the next one. The same if you are, maybe you already love knitting and handwork and you have 6 projects in your project basket. There was a client I was working with one time and she had like 12 projects. I said, how many? She was very sanguine. I said, how many projects do you have open right now that are in your knitting basket? She said, I think I have 12 or 14. And I said, okay, so before we talk next week, you can only have 4. She was like, what am I going to do with those other 8? I said, well, you either have to rip them all out and wind the balls up and set them aside, or if they're really important to you, you have to spend time this week finishing them. And when we talked again, she had been able to go through her basket. She picked the ones that she really wanted to finish, and she finished them in that week. She said, I took knitting to the park and knitting with me in the car, and I was knitting all the time. She said, I even took knitting to the movie theater. I had this like desire to get it done because I really wanted to, to report that I had done the assignment. She said, and then I went through the basket, and I thought, there are pieces in here that I started maybe a year or two ago, and even if I finished them right now, they wouldn't fit my kids. So she said, I just ripped them out, and I saved the yarn for something else. So if you are in that spot, I want you to like look at your crafting basket and go, okay, what do I need to purge? What do I need to get rid of? So those would be great assignments for right now. If you are a man listening to this, we have some dads that are listening to this, and you have a home renovation project going, and you've started on the kitchen and the bathroom and in the laundry room and all of those things, pick one and get it done. Here's why. Your wife will thank you in so many ways. And when you go to work during the day, during the week, they have to live in the chaos that is created by having 4 things done at once. So pick one, finish it up, and then go on to the next one, and really sort of feel the fruit of that labor so that everybody can enjoy it. So that would go for any projects that you have, man or woman, mom or dad, and even, child or adult. So I hope this has been a helpful video. I really love the subject of will development. I feel that, will developed intelligence is so, so important. And it's something that we, in this time of, everything comes to us so quickly, like we can order from Amazon now and it's here tomorrow. We sort of have lost a lot of that. So my prayer for you is that you really work to develop that, because if you don't, it's just going to get worse. And, I'd really like to see everybody feel like they were able to, get something completed, start to finish. Anyway, hope you have a wonderful week. We'll see you again next week. Again, if you're new to us, hit the subscribe and the bell notification. Please give us a like. That helps us in the YouTube rankings. And when you subscribe to us, you get notifications every week on our videos. You don't have to wait for the email. And you'll have the beauty and amazement of like all the videos we have, which is a lot. So anyway, have a good week, and we'll see you later.